Medieval Chronicles presents. In the 14th century, Barcelona was a city shaped by the sea. Its wealth did not come primarily from kings or castles, but from ships, warehouses, contracts, and calisthenes. Merchants negotiated in crowded squares, sailors unloaded cargo from distant ports, and artisans transformed raw materials into objects of value. This was not a feudal city isolated in the countryside. It was an urban organism connected to the Mediterranean world and governed as much by trade as by tradition. It was in this context that the Basilica of Santa Maria del Mar was born. Construction began in 1329 during a period of economic vitality and civic confidence. Unlike many medieval churches, Santa Maria del Mar was not conceived as a royal monument or an episcopal display of power. It rose instead from the neighborhood of La Rovera, close to the port, among merchants, dockworkers, and craftsmen. From its very foundations, the church belonged to the people who lived and worked around it. This origin would define not only the architecture of Santa Maria del Mar, but also its meaning, historically, socially, and symbolically. Medieval cathedrals often took centuries to complete. Their builders rarely lived to see the finished structure. Santa Maria del Mar is exceptional. Constructed between 1329 and 1383, the basilica was completed in just 54 years, remarkably fast for a Gothic church of its scale. This continuity of vision resulted in an architectural unity that is immediately felt upon entering the nave. There are no abrupt stylistic changes, no visible interruptions of purpose. The building breathes as a single, coherent space. This unity reflects the social cohesion behind the project. Funding came largely from guilds and local donors. Labor was provided not only by skilled masons, but also by the dockworkers of Barcelona, known as the Bastaixos. These men carried massive stone blocks from the Montjuic quarries to the construction site, often on their own backs. As an act of devotion, their contribution was not symbolic alone. It was physical, exhausting, and essential. Today, small sculpted figures of Bastaixos can still be seen carved into the facade of the church, immortalized in stone. In a medieval world where the poor were rarely remembered, Santa Maria del Mar preserves the memory of labor. Architecturally, Santa Maria del Mar belongs to the tradition of Catalan Gothic, which differs markedly from the Gothic style of Northern Europe, where French Gothic cathedrals emphasize verticality, complexity, and ornamentation. Catalan Gothic favors proportion, clarity, and spatial unity. The interior of Santa Maria del Mar is wide and open. Slender columns rise high but remain widely spaced, creating a sense of balance rather than overwhelming height. The eye is not forced upward in submission. It is invited inward into contemplation. Light enters the space gently, filtered through stained glass that illuminates rather than dazzles. Decoration is restrained. There is no excess meant to intimidate the worshipper. Instead, the architecture suggests dignity, order, and communal presence. This aesthetic choice mirrors the society that built it. Urban, pragmatic, collective. Centuries later, this historical reality would find new life in literature. In 2006, Spanish author Ildefonso Falcones published La Catedral del Mar, a historical novel set in 14th century Barcelona. At its center stands Santa Maria del Mar, not merely as a backdrop, but as a narrative force that shapes the lives of the characters. The novel follows the life of Arnaud Estanyel, born a serf and forced to flee feudal oppression. In Barcelona, Arnaud finds work, community, and a fragile sense of justice. His life unfolds alongside the construction of Santa Maria del Mar, and his personal struggles become intertwined with the stones of the basilica. Falcones does not present the cathedral as an abstract symbol of faith. Instead, it is a living structure, rising slowly through human effort, suffering, and hope. The reader experiences the building not as an idealized monument, but as a work site, dusty, dangerous, and filled with human drama. One of the most powerful elements of La Catedral del Mar is Falcones' portrayal of the Bastaixos. Historically, these dockworkers carried stones without pay as a form of religious devotion. In the Noveo Arnau himself becomes this labor is more than physical work. It is a rite of belonging. Each stone carried as a declaration of dignity in a world that denies dignity to the poor. Through this transformation, Falcones elevates historical labor into moral action. The cathedral is not built by saints or kings, but by ordinary men whose strength lies in solidarity. The act of building becomes an act of resistance. Falcones' medieval world is not romantic. The novel confronts the reader with plague, famine, sexual violence, slavery, and the relentless power of the Inquisition. Justice is fragile, often absent. Faith does not guarantee protection. And yet, Santa Maria del Mar remains. The cathedral does not prevent suffering, but it absorbs it. It becomes a witness, a silent presence that endures, while human lives rise and fall. In this way, Falcones presents faith not as certainty, but as persistence. The basilica stands not because God intervenes, but because people refuse to abandon meaning. One of the most striking contrasts in the Catedral del Mar is between Santa Maria del Mar and other expressions of religious authority. The institutional church, represented by bishops and inquisitors, often appears aligned with power, fear, and control. Santa Maria del Mar, by contrast, is aligned with community. This tension reflects a real historical dynamic. Medieval cities were spaces where alternative forms of identity emerged: civic pride, guild solidarity, and communal law. Santa Maria del Mar embodies this urban spirituality, collective rather than hierarchical, grounded rather than imposed. It is not a rejection of faith, but a redefinition of it. By the end of the novel, Santa Maria del Mar stands complete. But its true meaning is not architectural perfection. It is memory. Every stone represents a life that touched it. The man who carried it, the woman who prayed beneath it, the child who grew up watching the walls rise. The cathedral becomes a repository of human experience, suffering transformed into form. In this sense, Santa Maria del Mar is not merely a medieval church. It is a collective autobiography carved in stone. Some cathedrals were built to glorify kings. Others were built to intimidate the faithful. Santa Maria del Mar was built to endure the lives of ordinary people. It reminds us that even in brutal centuries, there were moments of cooperation, dignity, and shared purpose. That beauty did not always descend from power. Sometimes it rose from the ground, carried on human backs. History tells us how the cathedral was built. Literature tells us how it was lived. And together, they reveal a truth that still resonates. When people build together, even suffering can take shape and become something that lasts.